Hi everyone, this is Ronnie and I want to make a response video to something that's come up that a few people have spoke about a lady called Zuzanna or Zhanna Samsonova or Zuzanna Dart that has had a lot of press attention recently for dying from starvation on a raw vegan diet, and that's the claim, at least, that she died of starvation on a raw vegan diet. So, from what I don't know, do I want to introduce this? It's not uncommon for there to be media stories about vegans and raw vegans dying, getting sick, and this getting a lot of attention, and usually the diet is to blame. In this situation, in the actual article, it said that her mum mentioned it was a cholera-like infection. Now, the woman in question had about 9,000 followers on Instagram and was clearly a skinny woman. Was she underweight? Probably. Was she unhealthfully underweight? Yeah, probably. Was she potentially anorexic or had an eating disorder? Don't really know, but the fact that she was so underweight would maybe say yes, potentially. Never met her, don't know a lot about her. Haven't really reviewed how she did this diet. But the mother suggested cholera-like infection. Now, cholera, if it was anything to do with cholera, is something that no one dies of anymore, but people used to die of a lot back at the start of the 20th century. A lot of people used to die of cholera, and it was a waterborne disease, a waterborne infection. Many people would die of it, and we eventually figured out the solution to that. As far as I'm aware, it's a medical solution. That means taking medicine, taking pharmaceuticals. There were many forms of infection that killed people, whether it was passed through water, whether it was passed in other ways, but there are many bacterial type infections that kill people. Is it the case that a person has to be sick to die of the infection? If they're very healthy, they might not die of the infection. Okay, we can make that argument, but essentially people would die of infection. I'm in a greenhouse right now. People would die working in their gardens. The first person that antibiotics was used on successfully was someone that was cut with a rose bush, and that was not uncommon for people to die from infections that they caught from their garden, from plants, from bacteria that was on plants. The natural hygiene movement failed to gain real mainstream popularity in many ways because of things like germ theory, and that is still, or terrain theory, and that is still strongly promoted these days. That the terrain is what's important, and just being healthy and having healthy tissues and healthy blood, and that's what's important. And bacteria aren't that's not a real thing, or germs aren't a real thing. Now, what is true is germs don't cause food-related diseases or lifestyle-related diseases. Bacteria doesn't cause those. So bacteria and infections don't cause obesity, and don't cause lung cancer, and don't cause heart disease, and don't cause autoimmune conditions, most of the autoimmune conditions, or a lot of the autoimmune conditions I should say, and don't cause a lot of the digestive problems, and don't cause many of these things. And the medical world has continued to try to treat those things with antibiotics, which is not right. Because and people have realized that diet is the answer to a lot of those things. However, That doesn't mean that bacteria and infections from bacteria is never the problem. And in the raw vegan world, but the alternative health world in general, there's been this kind of argument against germ theory, bacterial infections for a long time, going back to the early days of natural hygiene people, who were absolutely correct with certain things and completely wrong with other things. And that's why these people were called quacks. That's why these people were not taken seriously. They had great diet information often, life-saving diet information sometimes, but they would be focusing on this stuff like terrain theory and saying, oh yeah, health has nothing to do with infection or bacteria. What that's led to is a culture where people in the raw vegan and alternative health scene avoid medical treatment and specifically avoid antibiotics. And it can be the case that some people have avoided antibiotics because they've had bad experiences with them in the past. That can be the case. If you've been given antibiotics for something that antibiotics weren't the solution for. But we know there's a number of things that antibiotics are the solution for. And we can't ignore that. We can't pretend it's not part of the arsenal at our disposal for survival, really. And that there are these bacteria and viruses out there that act to destroy our health. So we don't have enough information about this Zuzanna Dart situation, but if it was a cholera-like infection, there's a chance that this lady did not seek medical attention because of the fact that she had learned things within the alternative health, the raw foods world, to tell her not to do that and encourage her not to do that. There's a potential that instead of seeking medical attention, she potentially practiced something else. Fasting, potentially trying to take some herbs or some other thing, and most dangerously, dry fasting. The combination of infection and dry fasting is an almost surefire path to death. The total annihilation of your life. This is why dry fasting is unbelievably dangerous and something that should never be promoted. This is why anti-medicine, anti-antibiotics is dangerous information that shouldn't be promoted. It's not intelligent. It's not even true hygiene, the science of health, to avoid these things. The science of health and of creating good health in people includes medication used appropriately in appropriate situations. It includes consultation with doctors, dentists, chiropractors, other medical and health professionals. It's not ignoring all that to embrace a natural dogma, a naturalist dogma. My suspicion would be that the infection was more of a cause to death, potentially accelerated with dry fasting, if indeed she was a dry faster. She was so skinny that it wouldn't be surprising she was dry fasting, because one of the reasons that people dry fast, one of the reasons people fast, is to be skinny, to look skinny. That's the truth. So, was her skinniness related to her death? I don't think so, because I've known skinny people that have been skinny for a long time. I know people that have been underweight for a long time. There's people that have been anorexic for a long time. So did she die of that? She doesn't even, in some of those pictures, doesn't look the kind of skinny that is so freakish that it would even stand out that much, to be honest. Did she have an eating disorder? Potentially. Was she on the borderline of it? Potentially. Don't really know. Was it the raw vegan diet that caused her eating disorders? Well, firstly, if I don't really think that her skinniness is related to her death here, potentially. But if it was starvation that she died of, which seems very unlikely, if it was starvation that she died of, is that caused by the raw vegan diet? Well, if you just look at statistically, unfortunately, the number of people who have eating disorders, look at different statistics, suggests 6 to 9%. 6 to 9% of the total population. In America, that would be 15 to 30 million people. Something like that, maybe more. In the UK, that would be 6 million, 4 million to 6 million people, something like that. Is the suggestion that they're all raw vegans? Is the suggestion that every anorexic is a raw vegan? I'm fairly sure that anorexics have almost universally been brought up on a cooked food diet. Could we not easily make the case that it's the current standard diet that causes eating disorders? That some people embracing raw veganism is an attempt to solve their issue. Does it attract people because it's restrictive? Potentially, yes. Is this diet meant to be restrictive? I don't believe so. Is it meant to be a diet that you're on a low weight or starving yourself? It's not how I would ever practice it or teach it to people. Is it a diet that's meant to cause some kind of mental health issue related to food? I think we cause problems with food with the current system we have. I think there's far more food issues caused by the standard diet. And to blame the raw vegan diet, what we see unfortunately is ex-raw vegans who are now just vegans or even just gone back to eating everything, claiming that the raw vegan diet caused them to have these issues. And I don't believe that's the case. I don't believe. Maybe someone like Zuzanna, maybe that kind of an influencer was causing people to think or feel that way. Maybe there's certain people that are teaching it, but these are naive people. These are short-term people. These are people that, my phone's overheating. To go outside a little bit. These are not the people to listen to. And my message to you ends that people like Zuzanna should have come to UK Fruit Fest, should have come to Woodstock, Austria, Dutch Festival, to learn from solid people. Who did she learn from? Where did she get her information from? What was the community she was in? Who was encouraging her? This is an example to think about. That the education around your health and your mindset and your approach to it can lead to death, can lead to disability, can lead to hell in your life, and hell for your family, because her family and friends are going to have to live with this for a long time. And the people that taught her, coached her, helped her, or taught her this information are going to have to deal with this for a long time. But at the same time, some people just will not listen. They will not listen. And this is another potential dry fasting death, another potential death from not taking medical guidance or advice. Potentially the underweightness plays a part. I actually don't think that's probably played a huge part here. That's what people will have said around her. That's what friends will have said. Oh, she died of being underweight. But that's not what the doctor would say, probably. To die of starvation, you're talking about, you know, from her size, I don't know. But the Irish prisoners died 40, 50, 60, 70 days without food. But they were in prison on a hunger strike. The chance that someone's done that to themselves just out in the world, it sounds incredibly unlikely. That someone's literally fasted themselves to death. It's very extreme behaviour. I guess it could happen, but it sounds unlikely. So that's some of my thoughts on all this. Is a raw vegan diet a diet that leads to eating disorders? Well, if it does, the standard diet leads to far more. Do we have to get a better message out in this community and take more responsibility? Yes. Do we have to be against dry fasting? Yes. Do we have to be against terrain theory? Yes. Do we have to stop encouraging people to fast? Yes. And that's my message. I'm overweight on a raw vegan diet. I have been a number of times. Just eating fruit, I can go overweight. So it's certainly not that you can't. You can eat fruit and gain weight. Like there's no problem doing that. But anyway, it's a very terrible thing that happened. Don't let it happen to you. Get your education. Come and connect with people that to some degree know what they're doing, and live a good life and get away from all the dogmas. That's my message of the day. Thank you, everyone.